all over again. So.
I see the record up there.
Yep, we're on. Hey, it's Del Jackson, special holiday. Somebody said they can't see me, so I thought I would switch a little bit and do a little camo tonight. We got some special guests tonight. We got Larry Bellew from Penn Manor. We're going to talk to him a little bit. We got Coach Schlosser, retired from Etown College, and we got our main guy Rocky tonight too as well. So we'll start with Larry and how things going, Larry? How was your holidays?
Holidays were great. First time since 7th grade. I didn't have a lot of basketball stuff to worry about over the holidays, so it was unique, that's for sure.
Good. Coach Schlosser, how about you, buddy? How was your holidays?
Terrific. Things are terrific. We have 2 grandkids now, and that's exciting for my wife and I, and that takes a lot of our attention. And I've been watching a lot of basketball, but other than that, I don't have my fingers in it like I used to.
Okay. And then Rock, I see you doing uniforms again, buddy.
Loving the life, man. Loving that retired life and not worrying about all the stuff that goes along with coaching. But along with what Coach said, I've actually been watching a lot of basketball, watching a lot of college basketball, which I haven't done in the last 15 years because I'm watching basketball all day long and watching film all day long. The last thing I want to do at 9 o'clock at night is turn on another basketball game. So yeah, it's been good.
Good. Well, I promised everybody we'd have some Etown stories. We'll save them for the end. So I'm sure we'll have some reminiscing stuff here. We got 4 Etown guys here, so there got to be a couple involved there. Let's start with Larry. Larry, we haven't had you on an interview or a Zoom here yet, so tell us about your background a little bit, and also just kind of tell us where we're at with Penn Manor and the close down and the startup, and when you guys are allowed to play a game, really, because the PIAA came out with a rule, and I know you started late. You got some practices in, so I'll just let you go there. We'll start with your background, and then we'll go with what's going on.
Well, hey, I appreciate you having us on. This is going to be a lot of fun having 2 of my college coaches along with a former, another Jay with Rock. So looking forward to this a lot. But my coaching background, really starts with Coach Schlosser. After I graduated from Etown, I had to take 6 additional credits to finish up my minor. So my first year out of college, I was an assistant with Coach and Coach Ack and Andy Burkholder, who's now, in Massachusetts coaching. And that was just a great way to stay connected with the game and in a place that I was more than comfortable at. So from there, though, then I, earned a teaching job at Hempfield, and for the next 12 years in a couple of capacities was Warren Goodling's assistant. I was a volunteer assistant for the first year where, we were 29-0 and playing at the Hershey Park Arena with Ryan Butt and John Wilson with 7,000 people in the arena. I thought, man, this is great. This is coaching stuff's easy. You just roll in and keep winning. I wish I had that perspective now as to how special that really was. I think I probably took that for granted, but I was a volunteer there. I was the freshman coach for 7 years. I was the JV coach for 4 years. And when he retired and they hired Coach Walk, one of the things that I was told is I had no experience as a head coach. So at that point, I figured it was time I had to move on and look for something else. And then I came over with you guys at Penn Manor, Coach, you and Coach Detz, and that situation was great. And Coach Detz left after 2 years. I was fortunate enough to, become the head man there. So this is now, I've almost been at Penn Manor as long as I was at Hempfield. This is, I think, my 11th year in some capacity there. And, we're still building, we're still trying to find a way to be consistent. It's a grind in Section 1. It's been brutal for a couple of years. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about coaching. I've learned a lot about relationships with people. And I like where we're at now. I still think, we're still in a dogfight, this year. I think we could be, competitive, but as always in Section 1, it's always tough. So, right now we're kind of in a wait and hope mode. We did get started late. We've had 5 practices. It was nice that PIAA, lowered the number of practices down to 10. So if we can start again on the 4th, we're actually going to practice the week of the 4th and have our first game that Saturday, just to get started. So that we had a game pushed back to that Saturday. So right now what we're doing is like I was telling you guys beforehand, we did an inter-squad scrimmage before we were shut down, where, you know, we put the games on huddle, and we've had meetings with players, small groups, even the JV guys. And we do a weekday daily Zoom where for an hour we do a workout that has basically 3 components. We have about 20-minute, 25-minute cardio workout. I do about a 15-minute ball handling routine, and then we finish up with a little strength routine for all the kids in the program. So tomorrow, you know, from 10 to 11 and through Thursday, we'll do a 1-hour workout just to keep guys engaged and keep them in somewhat shape. So when we get the okay to play again, hopefully we're ready to go.
Nice. Hey, I saw where one of the ex-Etown College coaches now on your staff, 8th grade coach. I mean, what?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
How did
Coach
that
Ackerman.
happen? How did that happen?
I'll tell you how that happens. And since you guys know Coach well, you'll know the story. So, you know, since Coach has been done coaching, I've been begging for him to come help. You know, the hardest part, you know, with coaching is finding guys that want to do it and can do the job, and, you know, it fits their schedule. And when he retired last year, I started working over Brenda. I said, Brenda, what's he going to be doing all winter?
Okay, we're talking.
You know,
we're talking about Barry Ackerman, right? That's
Barry Ackerman.
All right, we got throw the name out there. All right, go ahead, buddy.
I said to Brenda, I started working Brenda. I'm like, Brenda, he's not going to have anything to do all winter. We got to keep him engaged. I said, look, you guys go away every spring. I can pay him, you know, a little bit. I said, his coaching pay will pay for your vacation in the spring. She's like, that sounds great. And I had her hooked, and I knew we were in pretty good shape.
All right.
So,
I just hope I can go to just one of those games. What is it,
me
7th
too.
and 8th grade, right?
Yeah,
Eighth
I
grade.
want to go stand in the corner and watch that.
Yeah.
we might have to get you a special pass, but I think we might be able to work on that.
Maybe, hey, Coach Schlosser, maybe I can get you an LO Hoops pass that day and have you run
There
a
you go.
camera for us or something. We could live stream an 8th grade game. I think they're allowed maybe 100 people in the gym if they spread out. So we might be able to swing that, you know.
That sounds good.
We'll play like Etown or Hempfield. We won't give them any tickets, and we'll give all Larry's parents tickets, and you, me, and Rocky, and you know, we'll do an LO Hoops live stream. 8th grade, Barry Acker, and then
but we'll just film him. I don't want to see the game.
Yeah.
I just wanna film him.
absolutely. We'll have Larry interview him at the end of the game. It's like, why did you do that? It's like, what are you doing? And, oh my gosh, it's gonna be funny. Larry, I gotta ask you this though. I mean, nothing's normal, but is Barry going to be up in the stands sitting with me and Donnie, or is he going to be down there with you telling you what to do?
I will let him pick whatever role he wants. My guess is he'll want to sit back for the games. But you know how long sitting back's going to last? About 3 possessions.
Oh,
I
boy.
mean, in all seriousness, though, could you have a better guy teaching 8th graders the fundamentals of the game?
Right. You're right.
I mean, I look at, he's got a group that's pretty solid, and I think he will work wonders with those guys in all seriousness. Like I wasn't going to bring him over to bring him some donkeys. I think his team will be pretty good, and he'll be great in that role.
Well,
Good.
Yeah, I know. I'll have Coach talk about him in a minute, but I know when we approved him on the school board, I made special mention that I knew him, and people's eyes got all big. I said, well, I'm not going to tell any stories, but I think it's a great hire for Penn Manor. So let's switch it over to Coach. Coach, how about Barry Ackerman? What was your relationship with him? When did he start coaching with you?
Yeah, Barry came on with me probably my 3rd or 4th year at Etown, early 90s. And he actually was helping out at Elizabethtown High School as an assistant. And Bob, I'm trying to think of his last name. Rock, you'll remember who I think was the head coach. Bob Freund. And Bob Freund had some heart issues. And so Barry ended up finishing that one season as the head coach when Bob got sick, and then was hoping to come back that next year as the head coach at Etown High School. And for whatever the reason, that just didn't work out. But he had I had a team camp at Elizabethtown College, and he had brought the Etown kids to my team camp. So I got to know him that week because we did a full week at team camp. And when he told me he was not going to be coaching at the high school, I asked him if he wanted to, help me. And at that point that year, it was just a volunteer spot because I already had paid assistants. So he helped me for 1 year there in the early 90s as a volunteer. And then when one of my assistants moved on, I hired him full time. He ended up staying with me for 22 years. And, we just really, really meshed, Barry and I, and you know how there's always a lot of turnover with assistant coaches at all levels for a variety of reasons, but especially at the Division III level in college. Because, guys and Rock and Larry were part of that. And you too, Dell, you're in and out for a lot of different reasons. But for Barry, it was a good fit and he was comfortable and I was comfortable and it really worked. He got to know my ins and outs and I got to know his, and we worked really well together. And, we had a good bit of success at Elizabethtown College for a good number of years. And Barry was a real big part of that. He really was.
Yeah, he was a go-getter. There's no doubt about that. I'm looking at Larry and Rock, and then let me hit Larry first, and I'll go to Rock. How about you guys coached against each other, and yet you had a kind of a similar background. So I know coaches feel different about coaching against each other, but let's start with Larry. Larry, when you played Etown once a year, was there anything special, or are you kind of like, okay, here comes a lot of Etown stuff? I know you personally, and I know how I've watched you guys coach, and I know you've changed things from Coach Schlosser's system, but I know you also use stuff from his system. So I'll start with Larry. What were your thoughts when you had to coach against Rock when he was at Etown?
I think the thing that I respected most about from Rock is I watched his group grow. Those guys started off as youngsters. They took their licks, and Rock stayed true to that the whole time. He knew he was going to take some beatings early, but he stayed, he knew that if he stayed with his guys, they were going to continually get better, and he was going to have, years of success, to which he molded into some of the best years in that program's history. The thing about it is I knew there was going to be a lot of motion, a lot of ball touches. And I knew with Ryan running the show, they weren't going to beat themselves. And then when you add Elijah, an inside scorer, along with an interior defender, and then you had, last year with Pearsall on the wing defender, they were athletic, they were smart. I knew going into that game last year, we were in trouble. And, he didn't take him long to figure out our weaknesses, and they attacked us as a good coach would. And we hung in there for a little bit, and then the floodgates broke, and we just couldn't withstand them. The year before at our place, we were a little more talented. That may have been one of the better games of the year if anybody was there to see it. I mean, two teams toe for toe. They make a play, we made a play. We had a chance to make a play late. We got to the foul line, we missed one, we lost by one, but it was a heck of a game. And you just know with Rock's guys, A, well coached, B, are going to have a great game plan. And see, if necessary down the stretch, he was going to make the right call. So, it was fun. I wish I'd had some bragging rights, but it was fun.
Yeah. All right, Rock, we'll flip it over to you. What were your thoughts going up against Larry? Same type of question.
Well, I think Larry as an individual, I think if everybody out there knew Larry, it is what it is with him. I mean, he doesn't pull any punches. The thing I love about him is he's so honest. I mean, I remember going into that game last year, Larry. I think you guys were 4 or 5-0, and we were 2-3 or something like that. And I go up and I'm, hey, how's your family doing? Good. And Larry's like, you guys are going to kick our ass tonight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're 5-0. And a lot of coaches play those games beforehand. But not to say that Larry thought his team was going to win, but Larry's realistic, and his schedule wasn't as good as ours at the beginning of the year, and him and I have talked about it in the past. I mean, him and I can do whatever we want X and O wise. In high school, I just tweeted about this the other day. It's about the Johnnies and Joes, not necessarily about the X's and O's. So if Larry had the team that I had last year, he'd have beat me by 20. I mean, that's just the way that it goes. But the second thing I'll say, here's a great story. He talked about that game 2 years ago down at Penn Manor. 2 years ago, we went to the state playoffs and we lost in overtime of the state playoff game. And honestly, like once a week, I think about this. I kick myself in the butt because we had the ball under our own basket, baseline out of bounds play, scores tied with 4 or 5 seconds left. And I think back to a play that Larry ran against us that I think he drew up in the huddle. Similar situation. They were down 2 with the ball, baseline out of bounds under their own basket. And he had their best player take the ball out of bounds. And he called a timeout, whatever. And I had said, I forget what the kid's name was at the time, Larry, but I said, if this guy, we're doubling him as soon as he gets the ball. Well, Larry's very smart. So what he did was he had this guy take the ball out of bounds and he'd flash somebody to the corner. And then he had the corner kid fake a handoff to the kid that we were doubling, that we were worried about scoring, went in for a nice, easy layup to tie the game late in the game. And Larry, I think about that play because that is the play that I should have run, that I should have drew up in the state playoff game, because Larry Locker had 27 points. They weren't worried about anybody but Larry Locker in that game. And if I'd have had one of my guards fake that handoff to Larry, it would have been a layup to win the game. So that just shows you what kind of coach he is. I know for a fact that they didn't have that play in their playbook. He just drew that up, and it was a genius of a play. I wish I was as smart as Larry because I would have won a state.
Don't sell yourself short there, Rocket. You don't want that. Trust me.
Let me go to Coach Schlosser. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking and I'm seeing some faces. Coach, about how many players have you coached? Let's just talk college, because I know you're a very successful high school coach, and also you have quite a coaching family. That you've had a lot of guys that played for you that are high school coaches or coaching in some form. So what's your thoughts on, like, how many players did you have? How many guys are still coaching that you know of? And how are your connections with those guys that are still coaching?
Yeah, that's, Rocky and I talk about it a little bit too, for a variety of reasons. But so I was at Etown for 27 years. Now, how many players is that? Honest to God, I don't know, but it's a heck of a lot. But right now, just with the college guys that played for me, there's over 20. I think I've given you a number, like 24 guys that are presently coaching. And a few of them are, at the college level. You had mentioned, Larry mentioned Andy Burkholder, Brad Carley's at Lebanon Valley. But, most of the guys are coaching high school. And that's, it's hard to put into words the fact that so many of those guys, now there were so many players over 27 years, but the fact that 20 some of them, got into the business, and I don't like calling it a business, but, the fact that they are doing it, it's just really an awesome thing to, go and watch watch Larry's team, watch Rocky's team, watch all these guys that are coaching, because a lot of them are coaching locally here. Not all of them, but you get the opportunity to go see a ton of games. And that's what I've liked since I've retired. When I was still coaching, obviously that was very difficult. But over the last 3 years, I've gone to an awful lot of high school games of guys that, were ex-players. And it's just a tremendous feeling to just sit back and watch, or even to hear Larry and Rocky talk right now. The respect I have for those guys for, just what they've learned over the years, not necessarily from me, but learned from each other and learned from the experience of, coaching and watching them grow, I guess. You watch them grow as players and as young men, and now you watch them grow as adults, as fathers, and as coaches. It's just that I've been blessed, to have that experience, and it's just really cool.
Yeah. Let's.
So Dell, I want to mention
go ahead,
something.
Rocky. I was going to turn it over to you right now. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, so I've been digging in a lot with a lot of free time with being isolated and everything like that. I've been digging into the Lancaster online archives, and I've been doing some digging up on some Etown College history and some Etown High School history. And I think the cool thing, that people don't realize about Coach is prior to him getting to Etown College, Dell, there was 4 coaches in those 4 years. So what I didn't know. Bob Moore, was it, Coach? Bob Moore, is that? I'm gonna.
Don Smith, you're thinking
Don
maybe.
Smith, yeah. Listen,
Don
to Bob
Smith,
Moore.
he coached for a long time there.
He did, but
Correct.
so Don Smith coached for, I want to say 10 years at Etown. Went to Bucknell for 7 or 8 years, I think, and then came back to Etown for 20 years. And then once he left, it went to Donnie Marsh, who you guys know from F&M. I think he was drafted in the NBA. Now he's at Florida Gulf Coast, I think, as an associate head coach.
Right.
Only there for a year because he had family. He was commuting 2 hours, every day to practice. It was just too much for him. And then after that, it went back to Dave Lebo, who was a '66 graduate of Etown College, who just won 4 state championships in high school. And same thing with him. The commute 45 minutes a day, along with recruiting and everything was too much for him. And then Coach came in. So, you think about, he's talking about the 27 years, solidifying the program and the college and everything like that for those 27 years. A lot of us just think, oh, Coach has been there since 1990 or whatever it was. I mean, the program was in some serious turmoil. And for him, to come in when that Lebanon Valley thing happened in '94, and then, my gosh, 8 years after that to get his team to the national championship, I think is pretty special. So there's a lot of history that I've been going over. That's just a small part of it, but I think that's something pretty cool coming into a program in turmoil and really solidifying the culture of it.
That's pretty cool. Hey, I got one quick story, and then I'll turn it back over to you guys. But you're talking about Lebanon Valley. I was on Coach's staff, I don't know, 90s, 90, I don't even know what it was, 94, 97. But anyway, we would go recruit somebody, and then somebody would say something about, oh, Lebanon Valley won a national championship. And I loved it. Coaches, oh yeah, we beat them. We beat them. We took care of roads. That was no problem. That was no issue.
We beat them at their place my freshman year, the year after they won the national title.
There you go. So,
Yeah.
Coach,
I won't say what happened. I won't say that. I won't tell anybody we lost by 38 on our senior day later that year. But
That's right. Yeah.
we beat them at their place.
That's just that's just great.
Yeah.
Rocky was sending some stuff with you were tweeting out some things, and then you had the Camp Hill Etown game, and I think I was at that game as just watching, because I remember Pete Kramer, I remember Wally Walker, and I went to a lot of high school games when
here's another thing that goes with that, Dell. So a lot of people out there probably don't know that the head coach at Duke, right before Krzyzewski, he was the coach there for, I want to say 6 or 8 years, was Bill Foster, and Bill Foster is an Elizabethtown College graduate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Coach brought him in to talk to us when we were players at the time. And it's funny, you sit there and you listen, when you're a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid, and you hear some old guy come in and you listen to him talking, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then 20 years later, you're like, no, that guy coached Duke in the championship in 1978.
Yeah.
Was a coach before Coach K. Like, that's a pretty big deal.
Jaminski,
so much history.
All them boys. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much history. And for everybody out there that has an account to Lancaster Online, you can go into the archives if you pay that, I don't know, like if you have an account, it's like $1.99 a month. And you can literally search names and search years. And, so much what I've learned through the years is so much history gets changed in people's minds. So back, and I like to see what really happened. And having a lot of fun doing that.
That's great. Coach Schlosser, I'm going to turn it to you, and you can ask these guys any questions you want, or me. I mean, you got three E-Town guys, two graduates, and one that was there forever, and one was there just for a cup of coffee, or two or three cups of coffee, I guess.
Well, the thing now that I'm retired and I go and I watch games, And Larry and Rocky both have, been coaching, a good number of years. Rock just retired too. And Dell, you were involved. I guess for all three of you, it's like, how drastic are the change that you see in young people in athletics? Because when I was in it, yeah, over all those years, things change, but there seems to be more drastic change in the way young people, handle themselves, handle adversity, handle success. And I'm just curious as to how you guys, what your take is on all of that, because now me watching from a distance, I see some drastic changes. Some aren't that good. Now, obviously there are some changes that are really good, but some things make me pause, and then I'll let you answer. But, the one thing I would say, I'm certainly old school, but some things stay consistent. Discipline is discipline, and hard work is hard work, whether it was in the 70s or, 2020. But there are other things in the middle that have changed. And I'm curious as to what your take is on those changes.
Let's start with Larry, because Larry's got his fingers in the high school game now. Rocky's been out of it for a year, but let's start with Larry, because he can sometimes, I think sometimes when you see different programs that you're in those programs, you see different things, some good and some bad. I mean, Larry's been with Hempfield, and he talked about, it's like, hey, we were 29-0 and playing Reading, and this was pretty cool. And then he's gone to Penn Manor, and not that Penn Manor's a bad job, but it's a struggle to get to that next level, and it has been, but it hasn't been bad, terrible. It's just been one of those things. So let's go to Larry to answer Coach's question. What you've seen from your years starting in Hempfield to current head coach at Penn Manor.
I think a lot of what we're talking about goes back to even an education question. You hear a lot of people talk about how school is different and how things are handled differently. And I hate to say this, but I think it's a lot in the family structure. Like, I think the root problem here is family structure and community. Like, you think about when we were younger, the towns we lived in, families were a little more stable. Maybe mom was home. She didn't have to work. We now have parents working all the time. Single families, kids living with grandparents, COVID on top of all this now, families are struggling. And I find to some degree that a lot of kids are a little bit more, it's almost survival. They're about themselves because it's a little bit about survival. And if I'm not getting out of this what I want out of this, I'll go do something else. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I will be truthful. It's hard sometimes because you're committed. You're in the gym all the time, or you're making the phone calls, or you're doing all the behind the scenes work, and then you get a guy that doesn't want to show up or do the work, and you get frustrating. But sometimes you need to be a role model for that person too. Like, you got to accept some of it and try to mold that person into the person that they need to become, because it's not easy. I mean, I could coach Jackson and Coach Schlosser. I mean, I came with a lot of demons from my background, from what I went through as a high school player. I wasn't the easiest person to deal with. I had a little bit about me, but most successful people have a little bit about themselves in them. And you want that fire, and you want that desire, and you want that competitiveness, as long as what Coach said is that there is a work ethic and a desire there. But that's the biggest thing I find in the gym or the classroom, is that, a lot of these kids just need somebody there for them. Somebody has to champion for them. And, though you were talking about the difference between Hempfield and Penn Manor, it's no different in my teaching situation than in my coaching situation. Does basketball seem to hold the same weight at Penn Manor as it did at Hempfield? No. Mm-hmm. But I don't have a bad thing to say about my coaching experience at Penn Manor. People have been awesome. School's been awesome. The only thing you can say is, I've lost a lot more than we won. And if the record was better, it's been an unbelievable experience for me. all we're trying to do now is, and I told Jeff Roth this when I got interviewed years ago, is that we just want to produce a program that consistently competes. Winning will take care of itself from there. We just want to, consistently compete. But, some of the social factors now, we become more sports psychologists and father figures than coaches sometimes. And that's okay. That's what the job calls for.
Yeah.
But when you see those kids succeed, they're the ones that appreciate it the most.
Yeah. What do you think, Rock?
So that's a question with a lot of answers. The first thing that comes to my mind that's changed a lot through the years is the options that the kids have, and kids are picking options at an early age. So, if somebody's coming up through Larry's program as a 6th or 7th grader and they're not starting and they're not playing a lot of minutes, their parents and them are going to say, there's not really much opportunity in basketball. Why don't you go try lacrosse? Or why don't you go try baseball? Or why don't you go try swimming? Or there's so many other options. And that leads to my second point, which is kind of a two-part, that I realized as a coach. I feel like there's much more engagement from the parents. And look, I know there's a lot of kids where there's not, but there is a lot of engagement from the parents. And, like when I'm reading these articles from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, sports were just kind of something fun that you did. And, you played football during football season and basketball during basketball season and baseball during baseball season. In the summer, you went to the pool and you did this and you did that and you babysat and you worked and everything like that. And now, it's become specialized, number one, which we all know. And since it's become specialized, there's so much pressure from the parental unit, from the family, from the kid on that one specific sport. So if the kid isn't playing as much as the parent thinks they should at Etown, then it's the end of the world. And it's got to be something. It can't be, they're not looking to their children first. And I think that's a big part of the differences that we see in the coaching realm. And the way that I kind of dealt with that is we've all had kids whose parents weren't involved, whose parents, didn't take them to practice and didn't come to their games and things like that. So if I had an overly involved parent, I would just always say to my staff, I'd say to myself, I'd say to my wife, I'd say to my kids, whoever I was talking to it about, it's like, well, at least they care. That's number one. They care about their kid. I'd rather have a parent overly engaged than one not engaged at all. Selfishly, probably the other way, but you'd rather have a kid whose parents are really, invested in what they're doing. But I think, a lot of pressure goes into that because of throwing all those eggs in one basket. And the last thing I'll say without going on and on and on is, so many of these kids, all they care about is where they're going to go to college. And that drives me insane. It's like you got, some have 2 years, some have 3 years, some have 4 years. They're playing high school basketball, which is going to be some of the best basketball they'll ever play in their life. And all they're thinking about is, what am I going to do next? Mm-hmm. I coached AAU for years, and I stopped that right away with those kids. I said, don't you think about college until it's time to think about college. I said, be as good of a high school player as you can be, win as many games, playing as many big games as you can. And all that stuff takes care of itself. I mean, Coach heard me say that from my time as a player, like do the things day in and day out, game by game, year by year, and all this stuff at the end of the road is going to take care of itself. And that's what I preached as an AAU coach and as a high school coach. Unfortunately, kids are going to tell their parents what they want when they go home. It could be the truth. It could be, false. We don't really have any control of that. So that's kind of like my big thought on everything.
Well, Del, the one thing I got to throw in there because I'll forget, and Rocky's the one that turned me on to this a couple years ago. I taught a class at the college, a coaching class, and I would bring speakers in, and Rocky was one of them I would bring in. And he had pointed this out, talking about sort of the topic he just hit upon. How many kids that, let's say in basketball, high school players get the opportunity to play in college? And it's like the percentages, Rock, was like what, 3% of high school.
2.7. Yeah.
2.7. percent of kids that play high school basketball get the opportunity to play college. And that doesn't mean at Duke or Kentucky. That means at any level of college. That's a really low number. And yet so many kids, you know, you mentioned AAU, and they all think if I play AAU, I'm going to get a scholarship somewhere, you know, and that's what causes some of the pressures that the kids get under from parents and everybody else, because they have unrealistic goals. And it's certainly a lot better, like you said, to focus on the present and enjoy your high school years, because you may not get that opportunity. We were blessed enough to be able to play in college, but that's really difficult, and people don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, when you say we, don't include this guy. Oh man. Hey, I do want to say one thing. You know, we're going to go back to Coach's question. I'm going to spin it a little bit, but I was fortunate enough to coach at 4 or 5 different schools and pull some different things from different schools and see different, I call it cultures. I know, Rocky, you and I have talked about cultures. I think each school has a different little culture, and you got to kind of get into that culture and see how you can make it grow or kind of guide it your way. But when I was at Penn Manor, Millersville University was very good. I mean, they had it cooking. They had some really, really good players. And all I would say to a parent or to our kids, we used to go and sit in the front row at Millersville's games. I used to say, if somebody was interested in college and they say, well, I think I'm a Division I player, I'd say, okay, well, let's go to Millersville. Let's sit right there in the baseline. Let's not sit up high. Let's sit right there so you can see the sweat and the run and the speed. And, you know, if you think you belong in that group, then that's Division II. And if you think you belong, if you're that athletic and that good, then, you know, maybe. And then when I was at Donegal, the same thing. We would go to Coach Schlosser's game, to Etown's game, and I said, just sit in the front row. That's all you got to do. You got to sit there. You got to watch the coaches and tell me you can play at that level. Now, if you can play at that level, fine. I'll do whatever I can. So that's the one thing I use as a coach. I wouldn't get into battles too much. I would just say let's go watch a game, and you know, you tell me. And usually I found that the kids kind of knew, you know, they all have aspirations, but they would watch and they would enjoy the game. And then every once in a while I would run down to Duke and take some kids down there. And then it was a different, it's altogether a different world. So let me come back to what Coach said. And we kind of touched on some social things, but let's talk about the game and the players. I think, Coach, that's what you're headed for a little bit, what you watch on TV and the type of games that you're seeing, the screen and rolls that we didn't see. You know, we didn't see that type of game back in the 70s. It just wasn't there. The screen and roll, it's kind of come full circle. So the question I'll throw out to all three of you guys is, have players changed? Because I'm looking at these guys and I'm thinking you guys are all young, but you know, it's like there's no 20-year-old sitting here. I'm not talking to a 20-year-old coach. So from what you've seen, have the players changed, and how has the game changed? We'll start with Larry. We'll go right down the row.
I think the advent of the European player, that every big guy now handles the ball and shoots the three, and there's no post game, along with the advent of the dribble drive offense, has revolutionized the game in some ways. You know, you talk about team defense. Well, dribble drive offense is now more about individual defense. And, you know, like we played Cedar Crest all these years, and the first couple of years they ran, and I'm like, well, this is just dribbling around. This is an offense. This is offense. And then they keep layup, and three. You're like, what's going on here? You know, but then on tape, when everybody knows your sets or where your screen's coming from, everybody switches, everybody knows what's going on. Where in this, like, it's now about the individual. And I'll be honest, we're making a change to more of a dribble drive offense this year. Now we're just not going to go straight dribble drive, but it's player friendly. They have the keys to the vehicle a little bit. They love it. You know, most guys at this point now have been shooting threes for so long that if you can get them a standstill three, they can make it. And then, you know, if you can get a post player in there, then great. But like, I don't want to say the post player is a dying breed, because I think if you have one, you have a true advantage in there, but they take a lot longer to develop. And I think some coaches, especially, you know, young junior high coaches, they got to really hang in there, and you got to really stress as the varsity coach, like, keep working, keep working, keep working. You may not see the results of it now, but it'll come a little bit later. So I think, like I said, I think the influence of the European game, I think the influence of the dribble drive offense and spacing and attacking, it's now the way that people play. And you can't argue with the results of the teams that have done it. Like there's definitely a method to the madness. It's not just dribble around and hope something good happens.
Yeah. Okay, Coach, we'll turn it over to you. What do you see?
Yeah, right.
And seen so many.
And Larry made a couple good points. I like watching this kid from Iowa, Luka Garza, who is a little bit of a throwback to the old back to the basket kind of guy. But ironically, he now can go out and shoot threes too, which makes him, really tough to guard. But there are a few college players right now. Illinois has a big kid around the basket. There's a couple, So I'm glad to see that because I miss that post play. I really do. I like to see the 6'9" guy shoot the three, but I also like to see the old back to the basket stuff. And we're seeing a little bit of that. Interesting, I don't want to say the word. I guess it's almost a dirty word to flex my offense, But anyway, I had a coach call me recently and said, I'm going to the flex because a lot of high school programs are running this dribble drive stuff like Larry's talking about. And he said they don't know how to defend screening action or all these sets that you have in the flex. So he said, I want to do that because they're not used to guarding that, like back in the day. And I thought that was interesting. And the last thing I would say to you, Del, this is what really blows my mind. In 1994, when you were with me at Elizabethtown College, you were the one that convinced me to start switching everything in our man defense. And we did that for years and we're very successful. And we were one of the few programs at almost any level that did that. And now everybody switches from the NBA all the way down. And it's amazing how that has, evolved.
Yes.
And I really, it worked for us for a long time. By the time I retired 3 years ago, many more were doing it. Now everybody's doing it. Almost every college and pro game I watch, they switch every screen, which, it just, things evolve, things change. But, I think back to 1994 when you convinced me to do it just almost on a whim. I said, yeah, let's give it a try. And darn it, it was pretty damn good. And, now to watch everybody else do it, it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah. Okay, Rock, we'll turn it over to you. What do you think, buddy? Players, games, how's it changed from when you played? I mean, heck, you played on a really, really good team and all the way up through.
Yeah, so I do think teams want to get up and down, and Coach was on the start of that. I think. I mean, not to say that a lot of teams didn't score a lot of points, but we really pushed the ball and looked to throw the ball ahead, and I think that's very prevalent in the game today. But from a coaching standpoint, over the last 15 years, what I saw, and I'm going to really take a step back and take a real novice approach here. I feel like all of these spacing, ball screen, dribble drive offenses, coaches got really smart because they know that every coach in America teaches a shell, help, man defense. And we all teach it basically the exact same way. So what you're seeing with these ball screen, spacing, dribble drive offenses are these coaches taking advantage of the rotations, the help rotations that they know are going to come. And they're making one player decide between two options. Back in the day, it's like, that team, everybody's moving and everybody's cutting and everybody's screening. Well, you know what? When that happens, defenses that are taught a shell defense can stand and they can just always be in a help position. Whereas if you space them out and you put two guys in the corner and somebody drives, a double gap, then that corner defender needs to make a decision. Am I going to help? Because if I help, it's going to be an easy three to the corner. If I don't help, it's going to be a layup. And I think what you're seeing is just basketball coaches and offenses getting smarter to take advantage of that shell defense, those shell defense principles. I tweeted about that a couple of weeks ago. It's like, you know, the thing that killed me most was over helping. Teams just crushed us when we over helped. And that's tricky on how to teach from a defensive standpoint. And the last thing I'll say, and this is what Coach and I talk about all the time, is I do believe things are cyclical. And I do feel like we're going to get a flex revolution here coming in the next 5 years, because that's what happens. Everybody, you know, was running it 20 years ago. Then it goes out of fad because kids don't want to run the flex and they start whining because they don't think it works, even though we scored 94 points a game doing it. They don't want to hear that. They just think that it just doesn't work and it's not cool. So then coaches stop running it. Well, you're going to see it coming back here. My guess is within 5 years with some, you know, really good athletic schools running it and teaching their kids how to screen off the ball. That's what Coach is talking about. All we work on is ball screens. We don't work how to defend off the ball screens anymore, right? So, you know, a team that comes back in with the flex and, you know, knows how to make a backdoor cut or knows how to screen off the ball or knows how to pin and seal their guy in the post. Those are the teams, you know, that are going to do really well, and then the flex will come back and then it'll go out. And, you know, it's just that's kind of how I think basketball is working right now.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about positionless basketball, a really good skilled team in the flex. 5 guys can post, 5 guys can attack, 5 guys can shoot it. Now you get a little more screening action, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, because the problem we all have in high school is we all have 2 guys that can't shoot at a lick.
Well, and
Right.
the other problem,
or you got the guy that can't dribble at a lick, you know, but you put
Right.
5 guys out there that can play with that spacing and the attention that you got to you know, stand down by the rim. Yeah, it will be back.
yeah, the other problem in the LL is they're not 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guys. So, you know, people are spreading out and dribbling and doing, you know, doing that type of thing.
But when we struggled in games, I always had it in my back pocket. I didn't come out and really run the flex against anybody. But if we struggled, oh my God, we'll come down and we just, you know, elbow to elbow to elbow, and we get a shot all the time, whether it was a 15-foot jump shot or it was something around the basket.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Donegal, I just changed the name so everybody wasn't calling flex. I called it muscle. I just went like this, and then I put a backdoor screen in for it for a lob, so everybody was like, wait, that's not the flex. You know, that's something different. So, you know, things change. I you know, going back to what Coach is saying, how people kind of swing back and forth and what we're seeing. I used to think about that all the time. And I know when I was at Penn Manor, we played a lot of zone, and I kept, when I would talk to people that weren't I was coaching against, I would say something to them like, okay, how many sets do you have against the man-to-man? And the coach would say, oh, I got 5 set plays against the man-to-man. I said, that's great. I said, how many sets do you have against the man-to-man underneath? He said, oh, I got 5 sets underneath for a man-to-man. I said, okay, you tell me how many set plays you have against a zone. And the guy would look at me like, well, we run T-game. I said, okay. And then how many set plays do you have against a zone underneath? And they were just like, well, we just run our regular stuff. I said, okay, you know, so it's like, I was thinking like that. And then the other thing that I thought of, and I don't know, you guys have seen enough basketball, and then Coach Schlosser, you can come back to this, but I was a big Bobby Knight guy, and I got all his tapes, and he had all that motion offense and that screening, and he did high low, and he did a lot of different things with movement, not so much with a dribble. But I don't see too much of that type of offense in the high school game. Do you guys see? I mean, you see some movement, some up and down once in a while, but usually it winds up, you know, kind of where the ball's going to go and the guy's going to drive. And I don't know. And one of the things I ask when I see some college coaches, I say, hey, you guys ever run any back screens? I see everybody kind of going out and denying the ball and dribbling past the guy. I said, does anybody set back screen? And everybody, oh, yeah, we set a lot of back screens. I said, okay, well, I don't see too many of them. So, I mean, do you guys see that as just part of the high school game, or it's kind of gone away? Like the back screen, a cross screen, even the flex screen. I mean, I remember talking to AJ Beamer, who was a head coach for a while, and I recruited when I was at Etown, and they would run that basic flex cut at least once a game and get a layup off of it. I'm like, how do you get away with that? He said, well, we just run it. You know, it wasn't part of everything. They just come out of a timeout and boom, you know, they get a layup out of it. So I'll turn it over to you guys. Do you see a lot of screening action, or have we kind of gotten away from that, like Rocky was saying?
Go ahead, Larry.
Go ahead, Larry.
I think back to the last couple, like 2 years ago, last year, Township ran a lot of ran some high-low, ran some screen stuff, but they had the man kid who was a college tight end. They had Stokes who was 6'5". They had Oldak at 6'3", who, he had legitimate size. So like they pounded you inside. Like, my second biggest guy in the court was usually 5'10". Well, Stokes would have a big night pretty much every time we played him because it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. But no, very few. I think Cocalico before Coach Sigmund, they ran a lot of 3-out, 2-in motion. But it's a lot of open post, curl cuts, space the floor, dribble drive, maybe some 4-around-1 but it's not a lot of screening where it's more just space it, cut through, give your big guy a chance to post, create space for your guards. That's when I just quick run down section 1. That's pretty much everybody's offense. Township being the exception with a little bit of the high-low game last year because they had some big guys.
Yeah. Coach, what do you see?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of screening. I don't, and to me, being an old school guy, I miss that. You talk about Bobby Knight, and there's a lot of other throwbacks that you could look at. You just don't see a whole lot of it. And I'm not quite sure why. But, I'd like to think that coaches will eventually come back to that too. Because I think it's an important part of the game that's missing. Mm-hmm. But I don't see a whole lot of it right now. I really don't. And maybe, we've fallen in love with that 3-point shot so darn much, and that's part of the reason why you don't see a whole lot of screening, on the lane, on the block, on the inside, that kind of stuff, because everybody's living and dying on that 3. And that's a little dangerous.
Yeah. Rock, what do you think?
I just feel like everybody is trying in the coaching realm. They copy the successful teams, and the successful teams that we've had are dribble drive. Every time you turn on college basketball, you're seeing some continuity ball screen offense. I can say me personally, what I did when we started winning some games is I had a couple good players, and I literally just tried to get them the ball at certain spots on the floor. I was a very heavy set guy. And then we were obviously up and down in transition, but I had Larry Locker. When I had a set, I was trying to get Larry Locker the ball in the post, and he was drop step jump, right hand jump hook. That's all we were trying to do. And we spoon fed him a bunch of points in there. And then, when he left, we did the same thing with Elijah. As far as the system, I think every coach wants to put a system in that all their players can learn coming up through. And for us, the base system was the flex. Now, do we run the flex, more than 5 times a game? Probably not, but every kid knew it, so there was some level of comfort there. But, maybe I was different than everybody. I just found sets and practice sets where we were getting the ball in our best players' hands and their favorite spots on the floor, and we had success scoring that way.
Yeah, I watched a couple NBA games this weekend, and it was interesting. You would see a guy drive, kick to the corner, the defense would recover. He would throw to the wing, the defense would recover. He'd take a dribble, the defense would recover. He'd skip it over the top, the defense, and he'd wind up with a 3 either at the top or the wing just because they just chase the defense all over the place. It's just that's the game right now. It's just spread out and do and shoot the 3. I remember, the end of my coaching career, I was in junior high, and I had all these little dudes, they were 7th graders, and they all wanted to jack the 3, and they couldn't make a foul shot. I was like, what happened? You guys know, they would get in bad habits because they would be jacking the ball like they were, way down here. And then when you get them to the high school level, you got to get that ball up. And it's like, that's crazy. All right. So let's.
Well, don't you think that's the next revelation though? Like we're all talking about spacing. That now it's just figuring out the spacing with the screening.
Yeah.
What you just talked about there, Dell, is all about the spacing. Get the one guy chasing. As soon as one guy has to chase him, then your offense has the advantage.
Yeah.
So now how do you do that with screening? And that'll be once people catch up to the dribble drive and find some ways of different ways to defend it. I think that's probably your next wave then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I quit playing defense against that dribble drive. Drove me nuts. I said, we'll just zone them and it doesn't matter. And they can run their T game all they want. And I know what they're going to do. So it's better than chasing guys. So let's go. Let's kind of change it a little bit here. Let's do some Etown stories. I got a couple, but I'm not going to start. Okay. We'll start with Coach Schlosser. All right, give us a, and it could be right in, dig in to one of these guys because you coach them, you know them.
Oh boy.
Or it could be just something that
Oh,
happened
boy.
on the road. So give us one or two stories. I know we could
Well,
go for all night, but we got.
yeah,
50
you know, the
Go
thing
ahead.
about Larry and Rocky, you know, and when I think about, you know, the good players were always competitive people, right? The more competitive, those were the successful guys. And Larry and we had a player by the name of Adam Weber, who you probably all know. And they were like the same position guys, you know, like a small forward 3-man, we would call them. And they were so damn competitive at practice at times. I was afraid that, you know, people were going to get hurt. But when you came right down to it, you know, and that's not a story, but when I think about Larry, that's what comes to my mind. Him and Adam Weber, like just clawing and scratching each other for a 2-hour practice, you know, all day long. And that's what made them better players. You know, they forced each other to become better. And that's sometimes when we go back to what we were talking about, you know, how kids are these days. I don't see kids being that competitive with each other anymore to make each other better. And that's what Larry did. And Rocky was the same kind of guy. You know, he was so competitive. And, you know, you don't want to say winning was the goal, but, you know, that competitiveness came out in a lot of different ways. And that's good. I mean, you can always pull it back, but you know, if you don't have that fire, it's not going to work. Yeah. And those were guys that had that fire, and that's what I missed my latter years. I couldn't find enough guys like Larry and Rocky that would, you know, fight.
All right, we'll go to Rocky. All right, Rock. We'll go right down the line here.
So I'll tell you two stories. Here's my favorite Etown story, and you know, it's funny. Like the people that really know me will understand this story, but the people that think they know me and they won't. So I was a freshman, and I was coming from Bishop McDevitt, and I thought I was pretty darn good. And there was a game, I want to say my sophomore year, that we lost. And right after the game, coach went up to me in the locker room. He said, "I want to talk to you in my office." And I'm like, "Oh, no, here we go." So I go into his office, you know, and I sit down, and he said, he got right to it. He goes, "How many points did you score tonight?" And I was like, 2. And he's like, "Then why the hell are you walking around like you had 35? And you know, like that was a big moment in my life. You know what I mean? Like I've talked about on my coach's podcast about being humbled. Like I needed humbled because I was not as good as I thought I was. And we always talk about players have to have confidence and to have that edge, but too much of it, you know, is a bit much. And that comment right there kind of set me in my place and set my career up for what it ended up being. And you know, that's the problem with today. A lot of kids wouldn't react well to that. And I knew exactly what he was doing. And I didn't go home and whine to my mommy and daddy. You know what I mean? I took it and I said, you know what? He's at some points, like maybe I'm not that good. and the second thing I'll say is he's talking about the competitiveness. And there's two things along the line with that. And I can compare this to high school. In high school, it's really tough now. I don't think college coaches realize how tough it is in high school because we have 3, 4, sometimes 5 game weeks. So by the time we get into practice, like if we're in the midst of 4 games or 3 games in 4 days, we can't do much at that practice because our guys are dead tired and we're worried about, you know, overextending things. So you know, some people would come to some of my practices mid-season, and I know they wouldn't think much of it, but, you know, in my opinion, that was the time for us to get after each other was in the summer and in the spring and in the fall, because once those games started, you know, you couldn't have guys drilling each other and, you know, screening drills like we used to in college. I mean, in college, we'd play on what, Coach? We'd play on Tuesday and we'd play on Saturday. So we could get after each other Wednesday and Thursday, and then we'd have a nice little prep practice on Friday. We don't have that in high school. And I think that's a big difference. But from a competition standpoint, I'll talk about this till the day I'm off of this earth. Del, the pickup games we used to have in the off season, in the spring and in the fall. I mean, you know, an LL name I'll bring back in the past is Ross Unruh, and he's a dear friend of mine, and he was a great player. But I had Ross literally try to swing and fight me at least 10 times in my college career in pickup. I mean, because I knew I could get him, and I used to go after him, and I used to nudge him, and then when he lose, I would let him have it. And I just feel like when kids go in now and play pickup, it's like, oh, we're here to have fun and everything. It's like, I didn't want to come off the court. And it wasn't just me, it was all the guys. They didn't want to come off the court. And I just don't know how much you have of that anymore with really competing against each other and getting after each other, knowing that the second that open gym was over, we were all going to go hang out back in the dorm and everything.
Yeah. All right, Larry, your turn, buddy.
Well, it's Brock. It's funny you talk about those pickup games because, you know, I'm probably close to 10 years older than you, and I played in a couple of those games. And I remember watching Decker and John English down there, and I was like, "There's no way in God's green earth I'm getting anywhere around that." You know, those two guys just beat the living snot out of each other.
Yeah.
And it was like, "There's no way I'm getting around that. I'll throw them the ball if they're open, but if I got to help down, we're in trouble here." You know. But you know, the thing you talk about, Coach, with Adam Weber is like he definitely made me better. And I think and I felt bad for Dan Andrus because every now and then he'd get thrown in that mix. You know, we both beat the hell out of him. But, you know, someone had to take the brunt of it because Adam or I weren't going to back down. You know, whatever it took that day of practice, the next guy wasn't backing down. But, you know, I think the thing that if anybody was listening to this, that people got to understand is Adam Weber and I never had an issue off the court. You know, we both understood that what was going on in that court for that 5-minute drill or 8-minute drill or that 7-minute quarter we ran, we were just out there to beat each other up, help your team win. And when you walked off, you were still wearing the same color jersey. He rooted like crazy for me when I played. I rooted like crazy for him when he played. And I think that's part of the element that's missing. It's like if I'm not playing, I'm pouting for myself. Yeah. You know, if you put Adam Weber in a game over me, it's because Adam was playing better than I was. And if I wanted to play, I needed to play better. You know,
yeah. Cool.
And I think that's a big key.
I'm gonna dig in because that's just kind of what I can do at this point. So I'll start with Larry. So I'm coaching Larry, and we have I think Coach just recruited 6'2" guys or 3, and maybe once in a while a 5'10" guy that could play. But I mean, that was it. We were across the line. Once in a while we'd have a 6'5" guy, and Larry would always match up against the other team's 4. And I don't know how it happened, but he's out there against these 6'5", 6'6" kids. They're jumping over his back. The coach called timeout, and, you know, I'm first year assistant. I'm talking to Larry. I said, Larry, you got to stick your ass into him. Well, Larry being Larry says, Coach, I did stick my ass into him, and what are you going to do about it? I was like, okay. I was like, okay, you know, I was trying to, you know, it's like, hey, you got to, he just let me have it. And then I remember Larry would come down. He would come down. He would shoot like a 30-foot set 3. Coach would be like, no. And then we'd go in and he'd say, all right, you can play a little bit.
Right.
That set shot, I would just laugh. Like, that was funny.
I mean, Del, here's the thing. I can't coach at Penn Manor like I played at Etown, or I'd have been gone a long time ago.
No.
But here's my funny Etown story for tonight because it involves the two of you. So I don't know if you guys remember my first game sophomore year. Like, I was pretty excited about my sophomore year. I know Bill came in. I knew he was going to play a lot. You know, I'd heard how good he was, and we were roommates. So I watched him play. Like, I knew he was going to play over me, but you know, I figured I was pretty good minutes mixed as a sophomore, and I think we played Colby first game sophomore year down at Gettysburg. Tournament.
Yeah.
And Travis went off.
Yeah, Travis Crozier
Travis had like 40 something. And I didn't play much. And I remember I played poorly in the first half, and I came out and somebody threw me a water bottle. And I threw a good right hook into the water bottle as it was coming my way. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't know who Ken Ober was. I knew it was his name and I knew he was the AD, but apparently that water bottle got punched and exploded all over him. But if you remember, we stayed in Gettysburg that night. Now we won, and I was happy we won, but I was still pissed because I didn't play much and I didn't play well. And I get the old infamous Rock. I get the call, hey, you need to come down to our room. So we're like at a Holiday Inn in Gettysburg, and I got to walk into the coach's room. And I know I'm getting a butt ripping here. What's your problem? What are you doing? So you can imagine this. It's like 2 double beds. Now, Dell, you may not remember this, but you were in the back of the room at like the table reading the newspaper with like the interrogation light on you. And you got on your white t-shirt and your whitey tighties, and coach is tearing me apart. And I'm like, and I can see you in the back of my eye. And I'm like, I cannot laugh at him, because if I laugh at him, it is going to get worse. So I'm getting ripped. I see Coach Jackson in his unders and his whitey t-shirt, and I'm biting the inside of my lip. I get done getting ripped. I go back to the room. Bill, it's like, he goes, what was that like? I'm like, Ryan, it was terrible, man. I said, first off, I got destroyed as a human being. And the whole time I was trying not to laugh at Coach in the back, looking like he's getting interrogated in his personals. But then, classic Coach Schlosser is, I play a little bit more day 2. We lose. I'm pissed we lost. He comes up to me and goes, you're not as pissed off as you were last night. You're selfish. And just walked away from him. I'm like, Jesus, mighty. Are you kidding me? But
oh my God.
Hindsight being 2020, you knew it was coming because quite frankly, Coach, like I knew growing up in Schuylkill County, and like I knew I was the whipping boy. Like you knew the harder you whipped me, the more pissed I would get, the harder I would play. So like if there was something to be said, I knew it was coming my way. Billet wasn't getting it, Carly wasn't getting it. It didn't matter if you told Jesse Culp, so you might as well not even say anything to him. I was getting it,
Yeah.
So, but it was great.
That brings back, oh my gosh. It's like,
yeah, I know.
You guys didn't have to deal with Coach between those Friday and Saturday games. I did.
Right.
It's like, Coach, go out and smoke a cigar, relax a little bit. We're gonna play tomorrow. It'll be all right. Everything will be cool. Well, let me go back to that one, Larry, since I'm gonna hit this one. So I swear it had to be the same weekend, because and maybe it was the next year, but Crozer hit a game-winning shot at the buzzer.
That was it.
That was at Colby, against Colby. Yeah.
The place is, we're in the locker room, we're going nuts, and I'm there like, again, I'm first-year coach, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go over and talk to Crozer and say, hey, that was a great play. I pat him on the back. Oh, the next thing I know, Coach is hollering at me. He says, I gotta see you, and I'm like, holy shit, what did I do? He's like, Coach, we don't run set plays for people. I said, I know, Coach. I thought it was just a great play. Crozer made a great play. I wasn't bitching about your play. I was just like, hey, kid, you did a good job. I was like, oh my gosh, look what we're in for here.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, here's another funny Travis Crozier story, and it would have probably been from the same year. Now, Travis was never the kindest to his teammates. And there aren't many teammates I've had that, like, I might fight him, but I would think about Travis possibly. But I remember we played down at Widener that year. And Rock, you remember those locker rooms then? It was like a steel cage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we go down there and we're playing Widener. And Coach, you remember that was the year Chris Caridio was like leading the nation. Like he was like 6th in all of the college basketball in threes made. And I forget who the second guy was off the top of my head, but we go down and it's like Mike Anderson and I are chasing Caridio around all day. So he has like 2 threes in the first half, but we're getting hammered because this other guy has 6 threes. So we go in this locker room, and Travis is all over us. You guys don't want to play hard. I'm tired of this, blah, blah, blah. Andy Burkholder goes, hey, Travis.
Oh, you froze up, Andy. Or Larry, you froze up. Everybody.
Yeah.
Just getting to the good part.
Larry, let me know when you get back here, buddy.
Yeah, we lost.
We lost Larry.
Oh my God, he must have said something bad. That's right.
I think I edited him. I cut him off.
That's right.
Oh man. Well, while we're waiting for him to come back to finish the story, he's coming back. But I'll do my Rocky thing when we get Larry back. So the only Rocky story I didn't see I mean, I saw him play, but the only thing that I remember about Rocky is when I did the camp up there and we did that extended layup and I had him going from half court without taking
Yeah.
He thought I was half nuts. I mean, He really did. And, you know, I know we used to practice it, and I know Rock would he would talk about that he practiced it with his kids. And I think it's kind of cool because I watch the NBA guys, and sometimes I'm like, is that a walk? And it's like, well, they're allowed 3 steps. Hey, Rock, we could have gone from, like, you know, the arc maybe on the other side if we had 3 steps of those guys. So anyway, all right, Larry, come on back. You're gonna have to
all right, can you hear me?
You're gonna have to.
Yeah, we got you now.
All right. So
we got
so
from
we're down
when Andy was what Andy
Yeah,
said
so
to,
Andy
Travis.
goes, hey, Travis, your guys had 6 effing threes on you in the first half. He goes, I don't want to hear it from you. And at that point, like, they started going after each other. And it was like WWF style. Like, people were rattling the cage, and we were about ready for a fight. And, of course, at that moment, Coach had to walk in, and, you know, then we all got it. But,
Oh, man.
I mean, oh, my goodness.
Right.
Like, that was one of those, like, that was, like, the only time I was ever worried, like, a full team brawl. It was about on.
But the good thing for me now, see, when I hear this, I don't remember any of that. I only remember the good stuff,
Yeah.
the positive things, the nice things. I don't remember all that craziness. I don't, honest to God.
But I think that comes back to what we're just talked about, because how many times have you walked in that locker room, Coach, when you're talking about the end of your career at Rock, where you walk in and you're getting flogged at halftime and your guys are just sitting there?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if we're down by 30, if we're down by 20 at halftime and we've played like dogs, I'm hoping the guys are at each other here a little bit.
no,
'Cause at least I know
exactly
they
right.
care, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Del, real quick, because we'll probably be on till 1 a.m. But hey, I was telling them, I don't think you were even part of this, but that Dallas game, the NBA and the LA Clippers, that's what like the announcers were how come they would let that happen? How could you be down 50 at halftime and come out and lose by 51 and not show some you know, fire, some competitiveness?
Yeah.
What's wrong there?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean,
Times are a little different.
Well,
Times are a little different.
yeah, NBA, you're talking 70
Yeah.
games, and they're 2-0, and their best
Yeah.
players are sitting there. And like tonight, you know, everybody's saying Embiid's taking a night off. It's like, well, nobody took a night off back in the day. Julius Erving
right.
didn't take nights off. Bird didn't take
Right.
nights off. I mean,
Right.
they just didn't.
Right.
Hey, we're gonna wrap. We've been going, unless somebody got another good story. I can go.
No.
For a good story.
Yeah, I think people
I
probably
got a
checked
couple
out by
more,
now.
but I think I'll save them in my back pocket for.
There you go. There you go.
Beverages at some point. So
Right.
it was great seeing all you guys. I know Rocky's part of our thing. We're going to try to do Rock. The plan was to do it weekly. I mean, it really was, but there's nothing going on. So I figure, you know, it's like, we'll talk to Larry to see what his guys are doing. And we got a little input, and I think things are going to go forward in January. I mean, but who knows, you know, I mean, everything has changed. It seems to change a lot. So
Maybe Del, maybe we can do a crossover LL Hoops early retirement podcast. Maybe.
Yeah. We could do that. Maybe just put them together and put them on my website, and you know, whatever you guys do, we can do that. But I know Coach Schlosser is coached. I mean, I was figuring out over 300 to 400 college kids at least, you know, and that's not, you know, maybe some JV guys thrown in there, and that's probably even more towards 500. And I know you had a lot of high school, and I would like to get into recruiting at some point, but we're not going to do that tonight. Maybe we'll have a recruiting show at some point. And then Larry, it's good seeing you. I know we haven't had you on, and you were always in my back pocket, and Penn Manor's always in my back pocket if I need some help. But we plan to get out the game plan here for LO Hoops, at least, to get out some of these gyms we're not going to be allowed to get into this year, which is weird. You know, I mean, Andy likes to go in all these gyms, and we're only going to be allowed probably into the bigger gyms. But, you know, from people live streaming and from Lancaster Online, we should be able to put something together for the season. And I know, Coach, your kids are coaching, and I know, Rocky, you coach a kid, and that would be another whole chapter, you know, coaching your kid as a coach, coming up through, and how to deal with that, how to deal with the parents. And I went through that a little bit. I mean, I wasn't a head coach, but I'm telling you, it's a different animal altogether. So anyway, Thank you, Coach Schlosser. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Larry. Good luck to you, buddy. And we'll see everybody down the road, I'm sure.
Thanks, guys. It was great seeing you.
Merry
Take
Christmas.
care, guys.
Merry
Right.
Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Great
Yep,
seeing you, man.
yep. Thanks a lot.
Great seeing you guys.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks.
See you.